Hey there, welcome to Teams That Swear. I'm Adrian Villalobos, Leadership Team Performance Specialist, author, and speaker. Now this episode's part of something a little bit different, what I like to call Lunch with Adrian the Canadian. It's a special episode where I invite leaders from all over the world to join a live virtual lunch and hear from a special guest worth meeting, someone who's led in remarkable ways and in unique working environments. This series is much more personal. It's less about frameworks and more about the forks in the road. How these leaders have become who they are, what they've learned the hard way, and how they think about team dynamics and leadership when it really matters. If you've ever wanted to sit across the table from someone who's been there and done that, and still has the scars and stories to show for it, well, pull up a chair. This is Lunch with Adrian the Canadian. Welcome to Teams That Swear. I'm Adrian Villalobos, and this podcast is all about what it really takes to build teams that back each other, challenge each other, and get the right things done together. And of course, swear more by each other than about each other. Today's episode is a special series. It's called Lunch with Adrian the Canadian, a virtual lunch where I host leaders and really unique leaders from around the world and who lead in somewhat different ways than maybe what we're used to in their own rights. The talk is a little bit more relaxed, it's a little bit more personable and focused on the stories behind the people, part of how they become who they are and what they've learned along the way. Today's guest, this one's a little more personal, is how I would say it. Ben Villalobos. Hopefully I pronounced the name right. I usually get my last name pronounced wrong. But Ben's not only an ex-Air Force pilot, he's also family. Ben is married to my cousin Joelle. So technically we've been in each other's orbits for years. But like a lot of families spread across different countries, our interactions were mostly limited to following each other on social media. I think we've been to a wedding or two or family gathering. So
yeah.
I always knew Ben flew in the Air Force, was married to Joelle, but that was about it. I always saw him as this calm, quiet guy with a big, hearty laugh. But to be honest, I never really knew much beyond that. So earlier this year when I was back in Canada, I reached out, we had a chat, and an hour flew by like 5 minutes. And I found myself thinking,
that's true.
How come I don't know more about this guy? So what I heard in the conversation wasn't just impressive, but it was grounded, it was generous, and really like incredibly relevant for the teams that I work with today. So I knew right then, I was like, right, I got to get Ben on the show. So to give you a little bit of background about Ben, and we're going to dig into that in a little bit, but Ben was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He immigrated to Canada. Him and his family immigrated to Canada when he was 10 years old. He joined the Royal Canadian Air Force in 1998 and earned his wings by 2002. You're going to hear him talk about these big airplanes. So he flew one called the C-130 Hercules. He flew those in search and rescue, then tactical operations in Afghanistan. In 2006, this is pretty cool. And there wouldn't be many people in the world that have done this, but he was handpicked as one of the first 6 pilots to launch Canada's new C-17 Globemaster program. He trained with that plane with the U.S. Air Force in Oklahoma and Washington before taking command roles back in home country. Now, for those of you not familiar with the Air Force fleet, and Ben, you can correct me if I get some of this wrong, but the C-17 Globemaster is a plane that allows countries to rapidly deploy troops, supplies, combat vehicles, heavy equipment, helicopters, anywhere in the world. 53 meters in length, 17 meters in height, a wingspan of 51 meters. When it's empty, not carrying anybody around or anything around, it's about 128 tons, but it's got capacity for more than double that, 265 tons. To give you some context about how big that is, imagine anybody who's seen Black Hawk Down, I think those were Black Hawk choppers in that movie.
They are.
Okay, cool. Well, according to my research, it can carry 3 Black Hawk choppers in that. So it gives you a little bit of context for what that is. And then eventually Ben became chief check pilot, which is the person who decides when a co-pilot is ready to lead and take on the plane themselves. So no pressure there for Ben or the pilots that are chosen.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and now Ben works in corporate aviation. He brings that same mindset to every mission, every flight, that calm, competency, and clarity. Now, as impressive as that sounds, this is what really struck me. It wasn't as much as what he's done, but how he did it. And Ben will talk about this as we go along, but he believes that you can't lead without trust. And I think anybody I talk to talks about leading, they will say that trust is important. But in Ben's situation, that trust doesn't just come from having a title or something in the process manual that says this is the boss or the commander. It actually comes from competence, from being someone that others believe in because they've seen you do the work, make the calls, and they bring others with you. So we're going to unpack a little bit about how trust is built under pressure a little bit later on. We're going to talk about how flight crews operate with trust, clarity, and contribution, regardless of rank. And what we're going to do is we're going to learn what corporate leaders can steal from the cockpit to help create more teams that swear by each other, not about each other. So Ben, welcome to Teams That Swear.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. That was quite a good intro.
What went through your mind when you heard about all these things that you've done and you've like these massive, like for most of us, the concept of flying something that big in the places you have, it's just totally a different world. But what was going through your mind as you heard that?
Yeah, it kind of makes you go a little introspective, having been an immigrant kid and, just it's been quite the path that has led me to that. So, yeah, it actually makes me feel pretty proud about my career, to be honest. Yeah.
And it's not often that we get that opportunity to do that. So I think it's great that you can say that, that makes you feel proud, and it should be. Now, we're going to get kicked off, but usually with something we do here at Lunch with Adrian the Canadian, it's usually lunch. But I know where you are in Calgary, it's closer to bedtime, so appreciate you staying up for this.
Plus, I'm missing a hockey game.
Oh, there's an important Stanley Cup Game 3.
That's right. It's not looking good, so I'm not too upset.
All right, so we'll skip this, and hopefully by the time we're done, the Oilers have come
Yeah.
back. Normally I'll ask what's for lunch, but given the time, I might ask you something else just to give our audience a little bit of insight into you. You should talk about lunch or music, because music's played a big role in my life, and I find that when working in teams, music can be a great connector. So before we get into your story, I got to ask, Spotify, what's been on your list lately? Are we talking pilot playlists, late night
No,
cocktails?
we're not. It's a little eclectic. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got some Today's Country 2025. I have some NWA Straight Outta Compton. That's what I listen to at the gym.
Yeah.
I have some like Mexican mariachi music by Linda Ronstadt, which she used to sing pop music, but she's half Mexican. I didn't know. Anyway, it's quite a good album. So it's a little bit of a weird spread.
Yeah, the last one's a little bit out of my realm, but
yeah, well, I'll send you a link.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we'll put it in the podcast descriptor as well for all the Linda Rod
There you go.
Okay, so we've got the soundtrack set. So maybe as you're speaking, people might want to have some NWA or Linda Ronstadt in the background, or not. But
or not.
Let's go back to where it all began. Like one of the exercises I run with teams is I ask each individual to share how they become who they are. Can you take us to Buenos Aires? That's where everything started for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, born in Buenos Aires, the eldest of 4 kids, but born in Buenos Aires, but did not live there. My dad used to manage big kind of corporate farms within Argentina. So we've lived, I think by the time I was 10, we probably had moved 5 or 6 times already to different farms and whatnot. So that was always part of our routine. Every couple of years, a move or not. So, yeah. But looking back, it's always good memories growing up. Like felt was having a grand old time. I thought it was cousins and friends and, you know, horseback riding at the farm. And then one day it was like, hey, we're going to move to Canada.
So, okay. So that might have been a little bit of a surprise for a 10-year-old Ben. But so how did that come about and what was that like?
So, like, why they decided to move to Canada, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as beautiful as Argentina is, it does come with its fair share of problems as far as, economic third world stuff where like one year you're riding high and then change of government and now you're figuring out if you're still gonna be able to maintain your life. So I think from talking to my father later on, he was just fed up with the constant ups and downs, and he applied. To be honest, he applied for two places. He applied for Canada to come to Canada and to Australia.
Oh.
And yeah, but our landed immigrant status for Canada came first, and off we were. Yeah.
So then what was that? So how did mom and dad explain that to you? Like, because that's not just moving down, like you said, you moved a number of times when you were a kid, but like to pick up and
Yeah, it was kind of, first of all, they had to show us where it was on the map because I had no clue where Canada was at 10.
Yeah.
And then to be honest, I think they probably explained it, but I don't remember grasping the concept until we probably got to Canada. That was where it's kind of like slap in the face. Oh my God, I don't speak the language. I don't know anyone here. Yeah, so you're missing your cousins. It was just, that was the shock once I got, but the setup, it was kind of exciting. Oh, we're moving. We had moved before, so I don't think you didn't capture the full grasp of what was about to come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the language. So where did you end up?
So so dad moved a month before us because he did not have a job. So he came to look for a job, and then we were coming after. So he ended up getting a job in a town called Vauxhall, population 1,000. And we were living in Buenos Aires, population 10 million.
Yeah.
So that's where we moved, Vauxhall, Alberta. So bit of a shock there, but I do believe that like the people treated us, they really did welcome us in with open arms. And I remember even my mom didn't speak any English. So she would go, like one of our teachers had invited her to go play tennis. So they would go with an English Spanish dictionary and they would like play a bit of tennis, and then they would just she would look at words and try to talk to her that way. And that's kind of, but the fact that this teacher from the school took time out to do that and help her out, and we had a lot of those instances.
So, but like for you, so you're 10, you're the oldest in the family.
Yeah.
You don't speak the language. Like, what do you remember about those early days? Like, was it something you were just like, oh, this is just another move, or was it difficult?
No, I remember two things. I remember the first day of school. I remember going with my dad. We went to the principal's office. He was showing him my dad spoke English, but I didn't. So he's showing him the report cards from Argentina, kind of translating, and then they're talking. I'm just like, I have no clue what's going on. Then I remember they walked me to the classroom, the door opened, I went in, the door closed, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like it was, so that first day really sticks in my mind. And then I do remember I gave my dad a pretty hard time, my mom and dad. Like I was very upset. There was a lot of 10-year-olds crying and temper tantrums in the evenings. You've ruined my life. I miss my cousins. Yeah. All that stuff. It was. I took it quite hard, and I was apparently, from what my mom says, quite verbal about it.
And here I thought you were this calm, quiet guy the whole time.
Yeah, when you said that, I almost spit my water out, and I'm sure my kids would do the same thing.
So family was important. How did, like you talked about, we're the same. We grew up lots with our cousins, obviously. I can remember catching with Joel and all the other Belarsians and Mum's side. Um, so how did that manage going from having this real close-knit family to the family not being there? Were you able to communicate with them, or did you just make new family? How did that work?
Yeah, you kind of it's a probably a combination of both. It probably eventually our family nucleus probably got even tighter than it was before, and
Mhm.
then you end up, some of the new friends you meet, especially there were no other Spanish speaking immigrants in Vauxhall, Alberta at the time, so we didn't have that. Like my parents didn't have that outlet as far as a commonality, but yeah, so you just make new friends. As far as communicating with like the people back in Argentina or uncles and aunts. And it was, long distance was, my dad wasn't making a lot of money. It was like prohibitively expensive. You couldn't talk. So we got into this habit where obviously letters and stuff, but we would also like get a cassette player and just record ourselves talking with each other and asking them questions. And then we would put it in an envelope and snail mail back to Argentina. And then like a couple months later, we'd get another cassette tape back here from our uncles or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it would have been a lot easier now with FaceTime and yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Maybe a
yeah,
little ahead of your time. That's the first time I've heard of people recording on the Sony
yeah. Well,
blank cassette or something.
that's right. Yeah,
So what do you when you look back at that? You went through a lot then as a kid. How did that help shape how you lead, or even how you adapted as a leader as you went on?
yeah. I think that it helped me with as far as leadership or as far as that. I think it allowed me to be able to adapt, right, with all the changes and stuff, and to know that as scary as a big change is or something different, that yeah, it's scary, but you'll get through it. That things do get better. So when you that kind of set me up for yeah. So another move or doing something that is quite challenging. It's like yeah, no, that seems scary, but I've had other scary stuff, and you just keep one step in front of the other and succeed.
Okay, well, let's talk about that next step then. You're talking about one foot in the other. Somehow you ended up
Yeah,
in the Royal Canadian Air Force. How did
that's
that
right.
happen?
Well, it was probably not. It wasn't the most usual way. Like I did not join right after high school. Right then, when I graduated high school, uh, we were downsizing the Canadian military, so they weren't taking many people. So my grades were not good enough. So I decided to go the commercial aviation way. So I was, getting my private pilot license, my commercial pilot license, and then when I was finishing that, there had been a turn in the hiring policies as far as like, yeah, we need more people. So, and then plus I already had my license. So I was able to kind of apply then. And eventually, after all the tests and exams and prodding and medicals and all that stuff, I got the acceptance.
So I want to rewind a little bit, scrub back, because I'd love to know, like, because I think about you look at when you're 16, 17, 18,
Hmm.
the way we can look back now and say the world's ahead of us, anything's possible. But when you're
Yeah,
16, 17, 18, it's like, oh my God, what do I want to do? A decision.
right.
Like, did you try, or what inspired you? What made you think this is the path? I want to be flying planes.
Well, I think at a younger age, I watched Top Gun, and that was really.
Are you for
I think,
real?
yeah, most Air Force guys will be like, "Yeah, I watched Top Gun. That looked cool. I want to do that." So that was kind of like that's a cool job. But when I was 16, 17 as well, we had because we had moved out of Vauxhall to a couple of other schools, and yeah, I was a little bit lost as well. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know how I was gonna manage to get there. There was a lot of stuff going on, and with being a teenager and all that. But so yeah, but eventually I got there.
So you get accepted training. Like when we see the only thing I can relate to your world is
Yeah.
stuff you see on Top Gun, whether it's number one or number two, or any kind of like army movie, like I don't know,
Right.
Morning of
Yeah.
Vietnam. I don't know, but like, what was training like as you got
All
into
right.
it?
So the first thing that everybody goes through in the military is basic training. So it's for pilots, it's basic officer training. So it's 2.5 months. And that is, yeah, that's just as crappy as it looks like in the movies. That's the wake up, get some some instructor screaming at you at 5 a.m. and you're scrambling to get your physical fitness, your shorts and everything ready to go out in 5 minutes for a run and obstacle courses and all that. Then you got to come back for inspections, and inspections, especially when you first get there. I think a lot of like you're just shocked because you've probably never been treated like this before, and it's like you have your room ready for inspection, and they come in and they just tear it apart. No, like you're never going to pass, no matter how good you think you do it. Like initially, everybody you just fail, and they're just tossing stuff out the window, and like you worked on your shoes for like 5 hours at night to make them shiny, and they're like, "This crap, boom." So that first couple of weeks is when like most people will like the people that are going to quit. That's when they quit. It's the initial shock of that. It's like a shock and awe. They always say, "Oh, we're tearing you down to build you back up." Don't know about that, but yeah, that's usually when we get the people dropping out. And then if you make it past the first couple of weeks, then it kind of you get used to it a bit more, and then they start. Yeah, you start passing inspections, but you're still learning how to shoot. You're learning how to do. Uh, you have to go learn how to defend yourself against chemical attacks and stuff. So you have to wear your mask. You get thrown in a gas hut and with aggressive tear gas, and it's a bit of it's a lot of kind of interesting and challenging events. But yeah,
Like that sounds very different than my days at the College of Commerce at the U of S
I
training.
hope so. Yeah.
So what did you learn about yourself then? Because all those things you just list them off like, oh yeah, we did this, we go to these huts, we get tear gas thrown at.
Yeah. I think the yeah, you have to learn to be able to, in a sense, compartmentalize to, okay, this is the end goal. I can't worry about the noise all the time. Like the sergeant yelling and all this and being tired. I'm like, okay, but what's the focus? Like, what's our goal here? My goal is to go into that gas hut, not vomit, do my drills, come out, and then that's one tick in the box, and you're moving forward. So all the other stuff, you learn to. I think the people that are successful there learn to block out the noise that doesn't really matter, and that's part of the training of the military because they want to test you that way. They want to see if the noise will
Mm.
affect you and how you perform, or if you can just go, yeah, I get it, you're scary, but I'm going to do the job how you told me to do it.
And what about then? Like that just makes me think. So you learned how to focus early on.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
you could think about the next steps rather than wondering what's next or what could happen if this goes wrong. You could just have to stay in the moment. What about the pressure of that training? Um, was it a lot of pressure, stress? Like even in the
yeah.
workplace now, there's here in Australia, there's a lot about burnout and mental health and anxiety.
Sure.
I imagine
Yeah.
that some of that probably rings true during your training and beyond. How did you manage that?
Well, I think a lot of that is true. That I mean, and the training is designed to be stressful in that scenario. Now, the stress from basic training is more like physical stresses, like
Okay.
long runs, or if oh, the platoon screwed up and they're just running you up and down all hours of the night. You're going on very little sleep. It's a physical stressor, which obviously leads to psychological stress as well. So yeah, I just think if it's I knew the goal. I knew that I was already in the Air Force, and I knew that being a pilot in the Air Force was like this is what I want. So I like you just learn to Uh, yeah, try to block out that extra noise that they're throwing at you on purpose because they want to see how you react. Take the downtime. You meet new friends. Like I like to be social, so take that social time on when you're just shining shoes for hours on end, which sounds ridiculous, but yeah, like literally hours on end shining a shoe so you can see yourself. But you're there with like a whole group of guys and girls, and you're just talking, and that just lets you relax a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, pilot training is a whole different. That is, I always say, like basic training. If you just keep doing what they tell you, you're gonna pass, right?
Right.
Basic training. Most the people that don't get to the end are people that quit. Now, flight training. Now it's a whole bunch. Can you do these calculations in your head while you're flying the plane? And if you don't have that, you get like an extra kick at the cat if you fail a trip. But if you fail another one, then off you go. So it's stressful because in your head you're going like, oh my God, if you fail one thing, like all of a sudden your head starts going, oh my God, if I screw that up again, my whole dream of being a pilot is over for the Air Force anyway.
Yeah.
So it was a totally different type of stress for me, I thought.
So how did you disconnect? Because imagine with that pressure and the stress, that's one of the things I'll talk about in my performance energy programs is understanding to be at your best, you need to get energy from different sources, but you also need to be able to disconnect and not
Correct.
be
Yeah.
thinking 24/7. And I imagine if this is your dream, like from the time you saw Top Gun and you wanted to be Maverick or
Yeah.
Goose
Yeah.
or whatever it might be,
Good.
right?
Well, whoa, wait, Goose dies.
Yes. Okay.
Adrian, come on now.
Okay. We'll go with Mav then.
Yeah, there you go.
What kind of strategies did you use to manage that or to switch off? What worked for you?
Well, what worked for me, that I saw some people not do that. Like, I agree with you. You need to be able to disconnect. You can't, you'd start off, every flying course starts off with ground school before you get to the flight line. And it's, Monday to Friday, sometimes Monday to Saturday, like 8 till 5. And then, so for me, I like my brain's already fried by that. Like, but I knew guys I would get back to the barracks and then they would just eat and study till 2 in the morning and then get up at 5 to get ready to. And for me, I just thought if I did that, I would get burnt out and my performance would be even worse. I just needed to. Everybody has to find out what works for them, right? Everybody, everybody's. It's a very individual part of it. I mean, it's a lot of stuff works for everybody, but it gets adjusted. Like I would get home or get to the barracks, grab a bite to eat, go to the gym, probably study for another hour and a half to 2 hours, and then just shut it down. Like watch like, but because those courses are super, like it's Musha was what 8 months, Monday to Friday, yeah, Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday. So you're just going, yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Full-time.
when I was in school, when I was on squadron, on deployments and stuff like that, or when I would come home, I got into cooking. Cooking was my release.
Yeah.
Yeah, take my head off, and I don't have to think about the missions or anything like that.
Well, you mentioned missions, so I think so you had your strategies. The cooking obviously worked.
Yeah.
Search and rescue with the Hercules.
Hmm.
Any unforgettable missions or forgettable missions?
We had actually one was pretty interesting. We were actually out on the west coast of Canada on a training trip, just to pretend we're you know pretend there's a lost boater, or we had our different mission profiles that we would train for, and then we get to the plane to go out on this training trip, and as we turned on the aircraft on the radio, there's a on 121.5, that's the emergency. There's a mayday call that somebody had got into a valley with a small plane, and he couldn't climb out of it, so he pancaked onto the side of this snowbank in the valley in the Rockies, and just by sheer luck, it was was 4 university kids on that Cessna 182. Just by sheer luck, their radio still worked. They didn't, and they were all alive. So, and we just happened to be on when that came out. And so we launched we thought we were going on a training mission, and then we launched to go get these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after we track them down with our directional finders, because we have a, we get them to talk, and then it'll point to where it is. So we finally found them like in this tight little valley. There's just this pancaked Cessna and 2 of the guys were in shorts in the snow. You're like, ugh, just right out of the, yeah. So then we had to kind of set up the only way for us to get to them is to have our search and rescue technicians that are in the back. They're basically paramedics that jump out of airplanes. So you talk to them and you set up a plan okay, what's the best line of attack so you can jump out the back of this Herc, but be able to land in this little valley to give aid to these guys.
So this is a plane that's 50 meters long, or give or take.
The C-130 is a little smaller. So
okay.
it's about 130 feet wide. So everything's in feet for the aviation, but But I remember. So we did all that, but the scary / interesting part, you have to kind of come over a ridge, and so you're kind of blind. So we get everything. We did a couple trial runs. Okay, ready to go. They're ready to jump. We're coming over this ridge, and as soon as we peak right where they're about to jump, news helicopter. Just hadn't talked to anybody. Just where we had to peel off to the right. And then they left, but they wouldn't even answer our radio calls. But you got that a lot, a little looky-loos yeah. But eventually we launched the search and rescue technicians. I think one guy had a broken leg. They patched them up. We ended up calling a helicopter to come evacuate him out of there. Yeah. So that was one of the more successful ones. Yeah. A lot of search and rescue is usually search and recovery more than rescue. So yeah.
I suspect in the training they didn't have in there as a scenario the media chopper.
No, it did not. Yeah, we even tried to find out who they were, but they just left.
What about so that's search and rescue? What about Afghanistan? Like, again, for the standard Joe like myself, couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? Working in the Air Force, like what kind of things would you guys be doing, or was it dangerous? Like, this sounds stupid, but like, were you guys in danger, or were you?
There was times. How did that work? There was some danger. Like, our mission was basically to bring in supplies, whether it could be anything from like beans, bullets. On the C-17, helicopters, tanks. And then on the C-130 as well, sometimes it was to smaller airfields, and then other times you airdrop. So all the stuff is put on parachutes and launched out the back, so it just lands at the designated spot if you do it right. So that was our main mission. Yeah. Gotcha. And with a C-130, it was all day missions. So we would come in, and once we got into Afghan airspace, we would drop to low level, roughly about 200 feet above the ground, and terrain mask all the way to Kandahar airfield, which was our main base there.
What's terrain mask?
So, well, if you're low enough, you can use some of the mountains, so you're harder to see. So you try to stay in the valleys and move accordingly, so you're harder to spot. Like the most dangerous place for aircraft that I was flying, like a cargo type of aircraft, is the mid-range altitudes in Afghanistan. Right? If you're super high, they're called man pads. So you've seen them in like all the movies where they shoot the missile, the guy standing and he shoots the missile. Yeah. So those only go about to 13,000 to 15,000 feet. So if you're above that, you're safe. But anything from about 1,500 feet to 13,000, that's where you're an easy target. So you either want to come in high or you want to come in super low.
I love the way you're talking about this. Like, if you talk to anybody here, it's like, what'd you do today? Oh, we had to do a presentation to the board, caught up with some stakeholders.
Yeah, but yeah, but I bet you like it's funny just talking to you, the other day, and yeah, there's a lot of similarities if you're gonna, you know, do it right. It's just that you're just doing, but the process, like all the planning beforehand, all that mission planning, all the post-mission debriefs, all that stuff is such an important part to have a successful mission. And then you just after all your training and stuff, it's not something like all the danger part, you just don't really it's which is probably good. If it was in your head all the time, you probably wouldn't be very effective.
So let's jump into that because this is where we can steal some of your learnings from leading groups in these high pressure situations, and hopefully our listeners can capture some of those as well. You mentioned when we caught up previously that Air Force flight crews, they have a way they operate that fosters this environment where everybody has to contribute. But the way
Correct,
you
yeah.
guys do that is very different from the rest of the military. What's different? What does that mean?
Okay, so for the most part, the military is very rank structured, right? So the major, and the major is the boss of the captain, the lieutenant, and it goes down, and everybody follows that. And in some aspects, like for infantry, it does make sense. Like, okay, you're the guy, I'm the captain. I have to tell you to storm that machine gun nest. Well, the Air Force doesn't work like that. We have a very complex piece of equipment that we're trying to get from point A to point B. So we don't even when you're on the when the crew gets assembled, there's no rank at, in the aircraft. Everybody is referred to by positions. So usually the aircraft captain sits on the left, so they don't call me captain. They don't call me anything else. They'll go left seat. I'll refer to the right seat as a right seat. The load master is called load or load master, and everybody has an equal voice in the crew, or at least that's the goal, right? Like crew resource management is what we focus on, and that's basically the concept of bringing a total world, like a total overall view, that it's not just the pilot that's in charge, it's the crew that's in charge of this airplane moving from point A to point B.
So what does that look like? Like we were watching a video or listening to how you guys are working together. What would we see?
Uh,
What would we hear?
what, well, first of all, the one thing that becomes very clear when as the training comes along and you're learning how to fly the Hercules or the C-17 is like the there's a lot of briefs, pre-mission briefs. They're very uh very in-depth, and as the aircraft captain, it's up to you to kind of set the environment early where you allow everybody within the crew to feel like they have an equal voice. You can just say it, but you have to kind of set it
Oh,
up. What's that?
I was just going, yeah, like keep going because this actually
Yeah.
there's some research that backs up that the best teams operate like this. But let's hear it in practice, like in real life.
Yeah. For example, and I have an example of it, but it's more about the debrief. You debrief after every flight, even if you thought it went swimmingly, right? Because in my view, I'm sitting. I could think everything went well, but maybe something happened in the back that I wasn't aware of at the time, or maybe they saw something. So you
Mhm.
debrief anyway to hear. But what I always like to do when we get to the debrief is I would always try to say something where I had a mess up or something I could have done better. So so people aren't. You got to prove that you're not infallible, that
Yeah.
you can admit when you have your mistakes, and then that opens up for them to be able to, because I like people to tell, like I'd rather not tell someone how they screwed up. I think it's better learning if they are able to verbalize it and know that they screwed up, if they're aware that this happened, and that means that they know that it happened, and now we can work on fixing it.
See, the reason I love this, there's actually two pieces of research that I'll talk about in my Teams at Swear programs. One was done at MIT, where they used all this technology and badges. They put these on people, and they would follow them to see what did the best teams do differently versus the teams that didn't perform so well.
Right.
And it wasn't so much what they said, but what they did. So what they found was like the best predictor was patterns of communication. The very best teams communicated a
Hmm.
certain way differently than the teams that didn't perform so well. And one of the key, there's 5 key findings from it. And one of them was that the best teams, when they meet together, they don't meet all the time. Like they don't have to have all these meetings just for meeting's sake.
Yeah.
But in those meetings that everybody contributed roughly the same amount and the contributions were short, energetic, and quick to the point. And it wasn't that everybody had the opportunity, but everybody did contribute
Hmm.
to the meeting. Versus the teams that didn't perform, there'd be, and I think we can all relate to this. We walk into a meeting room and you can tell who's going to do 80% of the talking,
Yeah.
who's not going to say boo unless they're called
That's right.
upon. And then there's a
Yeah.
couple people that, depending on what you're talking about. So that's similar to what one of the pieces of
Sure.
research. The other thing that you talked about, and I don't know if this term is something that you guys would have used, but you were actually practicing this and creating this environment of what's called psychological safety. So it's this concept that was developed in the late 90s by Dr. Amy Edmondson at Harvard Business School. She was doing research on hospitals. Why do some hospitals produce better outcomes than others?
Right.
And a little bit of a spoiler alert. The main contributor to the hospitals that produced the best results were the ones that reported the most mistakes. And
Sure.
what they found in the difference between the hospitals that performed really well and the hospitals that didn't perform well, it was that they reported the mistakes. It wasn't that they made, but they reported them. So what they found is, well, why do these hospitals report more mistakes than the others? And it was because people felt safe to say, I made a mistake. I think I might have stuffed up, or my boss told me to do this. The doctor prescribed this way of doing things, but something's not sitting right with me. Can we revisit that? And
Right.
when nurses and ward managers, when they felt more comfortable to do that with their superiors, that they called that psychological safety. Whereas in the other
Okay.
examples, they're like, if I say something,
Yeah.
last time I said something to the doctor, they're like, and I'm the doctor. Why are you questioning?
Yeah.
I save lives. Just stick to
Y-
your job and I'll do mine.
Yeah. And then you just shut down. You're
Yeah.
that person is gone from that team. They have no buy-in. That's part of our CRM training, that crew resource management
Okay.
that was brought in. If you go back and look at uh, incident rates in the Air Force and aviation in general before this crew resource management training came in, which basically means a whole crew approach to flying the airplane. Vice back in the 80s, it was like, I'm the captain and what I say goes.
Mm.
And
Yep.
the amount of crashes, you'll see accident rates when that came in, it just started dropping precipitously down because it just made it. I mean, these airplanes just get more and more complex, and one person just you cannot handle it all. You need everybody to buy in to the safety. I would, I would, when I would take co-pilots on this in the simulator to do training, right? Or so sometimes I would jump in and do the flying, and then but I would do stuff wrong on purpose to see if they would say something to me, right? And I wouldn't in the debrief if they hadn't, I wouldn't get mad at them. I'm like, listen, you feel free to tell me I'm screwing up. Like you have to tell me, right? You want to survive. Everybody wants to get to their family at the end of this. So and I think that I thought for a lot of the guys that helped just to you push them, and some guys wouldn't say much, and then but then the next time you did it, they're like, no, I'm speaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you would intentionally make mistakes, miss things,
yeah,
leave them out,
in
like
the simulator, not
in the
in the
simulator.
real
Yeah.
life. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I
So
love that. Yeah.
yeah, because uh, it's a weird for example, I could be the captain, and my rank is captain, and my co-pilot could be a colonel who technically outranks me, but on the plane, technically I'm his boss. And then, but you also have a sergeant, and you also have a or a corporal that is, he's a spotter, and all he's there to do is this. But or you're bringing a mechanic with you. Like, we brought everybody who was in the crew needs to come in and feel to have the same amount of buy-in. In the end, though, remember, we're still getting like buy-in to tell me your opinions and stuff. In the end, eventually you have to make a call, and sometimes it might not be the most popular one, but yeah. But I think if you're as the leader, if you're able to take as many different views of what you think is going on and then make a decision on that, it gives you much more ammo to get to the right outcome.
So in the corporate space, we'll talk about different types of power. So there's positional power, right?
Mm-hmm.
President, CEO, managing director, GM, whatever,
Yeah.
the highest ranked ones in the business. And it sounds like there'd be people with different titles, but you got into the cockpit or the plane, and those kind of went out the window. But there's this piece around the trust, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
in your mind was one of the key pieces to that work, or to
Yeah.
things going right. And to your point, probably to people getting home safely back to their families in these high
Sure.
pressure environments. How was that trust built amongst that group? Like, what did that look like when it
I
was
think
live?
sure, and obviously you're always from you know you're from the same squadron, so you end up getting to know who does what. But I think, like, competency as far as an aviation, like, it you cannot get trust if people don't think you're competent at your job,
Okay.
especially in aviation, right? Like, if they think you're a shit pilot, or if you're kind of on the edge, like, they're not gonna have the same level of like, even buy-in. They're just gonna be a little bit nervous. They're not gonna give you their all. They're gonna maybe push back a little bit. So you just and it's a disservice to them as well for you to not be as competent as you can be. Like, that, this is your job. You have to be good. If I expect them to be good at their job, like, I cannot expect that if I'm not good at my job, and people also know that I'm good at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, yeah, like, you just wouldn't trust a pilot you don't think is competent.
So I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball to you, because in the corporate space, there's often leaders are promoted because they're subject matter experts. They're really good at what they
Yeah.
at their job. So it's like, well, you must be good, so we're going to put you to the role of leader, manager.
Hmm.
Um,
So, oh, sorry, I'll let you finish.
oh yeah, and then
You
others will go, actually, I don't need to be the expert because that's what my team does. My team are the experts. I need to be the one that's influencing upward, or knocking down roadblocks, or influencing and trying to get the broader business, different departments kind of working together, versus
right.
having to be the expert. So what's your perspective? How does that marry up with, because one could argue, well, if I'm the chief marketing officer and I don't have, and I've had this before where the chief marketing officer has a finance background,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
might seem odd, but it's
Yeah.
actually a
A
good
little bit.
skill to have in marketing. But they're there to lead the group and influence more broadly than be the one that's sending out, I don't know, making a TV ad or sending out a social media post. So
Right.
there's this, I don't know, it seems there's this little bit of a um, debate, or I don't know, just two different perspectives. That, do you need to be that subject matter expert, or maybe there's certain environments that you need to be, versus actually, I have to be good up here, but I don't need to be good down here.
Right. Well, but do you think there's a difference between being a good manager, and being a good leader?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can have great managers, but yeah, it's a little cheesy, but yeah, leaders inspire all,
Yeah.
first. Yeah. And I think that I think you can teach someone to be a good manager, but it's harder to like you can still teach to be a better leader, but there's some innate qualities that some people need to have, I think.
Yeah.
Uh but yeah, as far as promoting like subject matter expert, that's a good one because that's very much different than the Air Force because you know you don't want somebody could be a good manager in the sense where they're good at knocking down roadblocks or making sure the pay's in on time and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, in the Air Force, yeah, if your commanding officer can't upgrade to aircraft cap, like if he can't like if he's not a good like he just I mean you're
Yeah.
supposed to go to war with this guy. So you in the military you definitely need to have a bit of buy-in in that sense where you're like, oh no, this guy's competent. Like he did what we used to do, but he's moved up. But he moved up because he was awesome at his job.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, and to be honest, that doesn't happen 100% in the military. Also, there are people that get moved up for that, but the people, yeah, they don't have the same. They're not that people won't go to war with them willingly, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what my experience is, there needs to be a certain level of competency, but it might not be because it's not life or death. It might not necessarily have to be with that specific skill, but it's to enable them to perform, enable the team to
No,
perform at their best.
no, exactly, 100%. Like I'm a shitty load master. I don't like they build loads. They can set up the parachutes to go out, and they do like I know the overall. I know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
But I don't have that skill set. But but you have a skill set that is respected, and but also that you allow them to shine at their skill set as well.
Yeah.
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 And also and a lot of that competency comes to it because we all started out as co-pilots. So initially, I was a co-pilot learning about the guys in the back, and then you have different pilots. So I think also becoming a good leader is also being a good follower as you're coming up. You're kind of gauging from like, well, I don't like how he does that, but I never approached it this way.
Yeah.
Your briefs change after you learned that from an older dude that that really works for me. I like that. So that's how you mold your leadership style, I guess.
Yeah. What about then, like you talked about being a co-pilot, and then you got to the point where you were deciding you're the check co-pilot.
Correct. Yeah.
I forget the title right, but
No, chief check pilot.
chief check pilot. We got to get that right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all right.
But essentially, that would be the person who decides, yep, this person's ready to take on the
Yeah.
C-17 or to take that on charge.
Yes.
How did you decide when people were ready to lead?
Yeah. So a lot of that had to do, well, it's a variety of things. There's two aspects to like their upgrade ride, for example, if I'm ready to recommend them. The one aspect is, again, aircraft competency.
Yeah.
Does he know if this plane can land in that airfield or that dirt strip and take off again? Or does he know all that technical knowledge when it comes to flying? And also, just as important is CRM. How does he or she interact with the rest of the crew?
Mhm.
Are they getting buy-in from the rest of the crew as him as the aircraft captain, right? Is he is he rude to them, or is he nice? Is he firm but fair, which is what you need to be, firm but fair. We always talk about all these niceties, but it's nice until sometimes you can't be nice. But that's kind of a last resort thing. But so measuring how they interact and how they lead that crew, and so because a check ride would be a mission to Afghanistan, for example, on the C-17. So it would be the guy that's ready to upgrade, a co-pilot, and I'm sitting in the spotter seat behind them as a safety pilot and check pilot. So before we leave, I just like, this is the mission. You're in charge. You run it as you will, and I just sit back, take notes, and then debrief at the end whether they did a good job. But how they manage, like it's how they manage the crew, it's just as important for me as having that technical knowledge, right? Because if you don't have buy-in from your crew, someone's not going to say something when they need to say something, and things are going to go bad.
Ooh, yep.
Yeah.
And that's where that trust comes in to what you're talking about before.
Yeah.
What about, so we often talk about feedback, and this is, it's interesting. So I'll work with groups, and there's different theories on feedback. Some will say it's like, I find it is much easier to use feedback when it's asked for, right? When somebody's seeking it. It tells,
Yeah.
it doesn't treat it as the brain doesn't treat that as a social threat, that, oh, somebody's giving me feedback, therefore they want to exclude me. I'm going to be left out in the cold in the prairies on my own, and I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's views on that, and there's some models that work and don't. But like, what role did feedback play? Does that play as when you were a pilot, or even when you were choosing the pilots? Like, how did you best use feedback? What was easy? What was hard for you?
Well, I think that it's what is hard is initially figuring out that feedback is a good thing, not a bad thing, because nobody likes to be told they suck, right? When you're first starting, like your first pilot course, yeah, I mean the debriefs like are long and brutal. You're getting a lot, but everything's, the feedback loop that we like to use that's very basic is like good points, bad points, ways to improve. That's how I debrief.
Yeah.
But when you're young and you're getting this guy telling you, when the bad points are a lot worse, a lot more than the good points, you start, but you just have to take that in. I did find when I left the military and I got my first corporate flying job that, yeah, at least the ones I was finding, they were a lot more sensitive to feedback. They get a little bit like, oh no, I don't like hearing this. But it was just a basic, oh, let's just talk about our, that last flight, the landing, this happened, this was a little off. And like, it's not, yeah. So I think that learning to take feedback, it's probably going to make you a better leader, a better person as well. And it'll help you get to the next level. Just try, like, obviously how it's presented is like, that's why, as I was saying on debriefs, I like to, when it comes to like this part of the flight, if it involved the load master, I would like, so what did you think about how that happened?
Yep.
So if they could give feedback to themselves, that is the ideal. If they can say, yeah, no, I screwed up here, or I should have done this a little bit quicker, or whatever. So if they can give the feedback to me, that shows that somebody's even more ready for the next level, right? Because they're self-aware about their job, and they can self-correct. If they don't, but then you have to start saying, yeah, that was the one. Yeah, we had a coming into Afghanistan at night one day. So with the C-17, we flew at night mostly because we had night vision goggles. So you're flying all lights off coming in. And
how high are you? I'm picturing this in my movie scene in my head.
So because with the C-17 is different, like with the Hercules, we came in the daytime super low. With the C-17, we came with night vision goggles, no lights, super high, and we timed it so we could just go engines on idle and just kind of coast all the way to landing if you got it right. Right? So there's a lot of technique and planning, descent planning and all that adjustments, and sometimes it goes off because all of a sudden, but we were coming in, and as we're getting close to landing, all of a sudden, one of our spotters, so the spotters are there to see if they can pick up people shooting at us, right?
Okay, as you do.
Yeah, as one does. And they have specific calls, and I have to react to their call to keep us as safe as possible. Yeah. So what this spotter said, well, his call was, holy shit, I think they're shooting at us. And that's not what you're supposed to say. because I
That's
don't know
not
what to do.
protocol.
That's not protocol. I don't know from what direction. I don't know if I need to. Yeah. So yeah, that debriefing was a little harsher because that's something that could get you, first of all, I asked for clarification. I'm like, tell me direction. But when we landed, that was a longer debrief, and he knew he had screwed up. We went over it again. I asked him, like, so what was that? He's like, no, sorry, it just caught me off guard. I didn't jump down his throat. He knew he screwed up. Like, there's not much else to do. But I said, listen, that is something you got to have dialed in. That is not a you should know. That is you shall know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with I'm not sure what it is in the corporate world. Like I think with the military, because everybody on the courses, that's always been part of the way we do things, that people don't tend to take it too much to heart after they've been in for a while. They kind of say, okay, yeah, no, nobody's perfect. If you're, yeah, in the debrief, if the captain asks you to stay back after everybody's left, if it's being debriefed in front of everybody, it's not the end of the world. If it's like, you stay back up, we need to talk, that's a more egregious offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I heard there is that it's part of the process. It was part of the training, and it's part of just this is how we do work. Is we do these post-brief sessions. We talk about what's good, bad, and what would be better, or what did we learn. If that's
Correct.
a normal thing, the challenge in the workplace and the corporate space is traditionally feedback is given once or twice a year, performance
Right.
reviews,
Right.
or you get this. It's ad hoc, which sometimes you want to be timely with it, but it's this. Hey Ben, can I give you some feedback? And right away it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, the back's up right away.
Yeah. You're either scared or you're angry, but the defense mechanism comes up right away.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about what you talked about. It's just built in. It's just part of the day to day or part of the.
It's built into the culture in a sense. You know what I mean? So, and it's also, and I could see how in the corporate world, I mean, it's different if you're working together in a team, like in the corporate world, then you could do that. But if it's kind of like you're in this office and that office, and then you have to come talk to him, let me give you some feedback. But I think I think there's still a way to do that without getting people's backs up. If it's something that started from the get go and people get used to it, and it's like, hey, listen, I saw you this. I thought this was really good. Maybe improve on this, and maybe next time do it this way. Or good points, bad points, ways to improve.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
We're coming up to what I would call the dessert round, but maybe it's a nightcap for you.
Okay.
What is the funniest or strangest moment you've had in the cockpit?
Well, I had a VVIP on board once when we had first bought the C-17.
A what?
Very important person.
Oh, a VIP. Okay. Yep.
Very, very important person.
Oh, VVIP.
VVIP. Yeah. Part of the government. And so we had just bought these C-17s, which they have an amazing capability because they're a very large aircraft, like you said, that can get stuff all over the world, air-to-air refueling. So you can fly like 25 hours, but it can also do stuff that smaller planes. It can land on snow and ice. It can land on dirt, and one of the other capabilities, how we talked earlier about the threat envelope is, like 1,500 feet to like 13,000.
Those are your safe zones.
Above that and below that.
Yeah.
That middle area is no good. So this aircraft is designed in order to penetrate that kind of dead man zone. You are able to put all four engines in reverse while you're airborne. So that makes for one heck of a ride, because in order to not stall, like the thrust is going against the way you're going. So you're basically pointing almost straight down. Now, for example, an airliner will plan its approach, its descent at about 2,000 feet per minute. Our initial descent rate when we do that is about 20,000 feet per minute.
20,000.
And it is 20,000. Yeah.
And this is the big beast. This is the big 100 meter.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so you're coming down and you're pointing almost straight down, and it is shaking because the thrust is going against you, and it's just anyway. So this VVIP wanted to see this capability, and I'd say, kind of hummed and hummed, like, are you sure? Like, it's kind of aggressive. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I know. I really want to see it. Okay. Talk to the co-pilot. Like, you cool with this? Yeah. Okay, let's do it. So the C-17 has pilot, co-pilot, and then it's got a spotter seat behind each person, each pilot. Anyway, so we brief everything, and then so we put it in reverse. And it starts shaking, and I just felt something on my headrest, and I look over, and he had managed to put his feet up, like, and he is screaming. He's like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty funny." He was, and then when we leveled off, he's like, "Oh, yeah, that was very impressive." And he left to the back and never came back. Yeah.
Imagine if you run into this VVIP again, just put their head down and be like,
yeah. But yeah, there's always, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of good stories and challenging stories. Yeah, it was, to tell you, like, when I left the Air Force, it was time to go for me and family. But man, you do miss a lot of that stuff, that camaraderie for sure. Like, the team building is quite, nothing like it. Yeah.
So what does the future hold for you?
Well, I'm quite happy where I am right now. I think my daughter just turned 20, which is still a little bit shocking. That means I must be older. And then, my son just graduated high school, so we're getting to kind of eventually quasi empty nesters. But yeah, stay with this job is great. I get a lot of time off, so more traveling. My wife and I, which we love. So yeah.
So just to give the listeners an idea, what are you doing right now? So you've gone from the Air Force to
Right. I fly for a family. It's so they own 3 jets. I fly one of their jets, and oddly enough, most of the pilots that fly for them, they're not Canadian, but most of the pilots that fly for them, sorry, the owners are not Canadian.
Okay.
Of the airplanes, but most of the pilots are ex-Canadian Air Force.
Hmm.
So there's a little bit of that camaraderie that's there. So when you go to work, and so I just fly rich people around now. That's basically what I do.
There you go. And planes
Yeah.
are smaller. So VIPs.
Yeah. It's a lot more comfortable though.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
Nobody's not shaking.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody's legs behind you.
Correct. Yeah, nobody's screaming usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're screaming, that's bad.
Or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question. Like, here's your chance to kind of share, if there's one piece of advice that you shared with the leaders that are listening to this podcast, if there's one thing that you wanted to leave them with, help them to lead better, what's that message you want to leave with them?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. I would say try to surround yourself with a team that you trust, and empower them to, like, if you have trust in them, trust that they're going to get the job done. Be firm. You can be firm, but be fair with them. Make sure they have buy-in. I think that's you can't lead. It's not about strength. It's a lot more about empathy to lead a good team than anything else. Let's see. Yeah, and I guess it depends on what level of leadership you're at. I think the CEO is a different. I think a lot of the time you would see some higher ups that would just look one level lower, and like, oh, that guy seems to be doing a good, without really having the pulse of what the guys underneath them. Because it's easy to, if those are in the Air Force, those are the worst type of leaders. The guys that are only looking up,
Yeah.
and not to the guys underneath them to help them bring them along. So I always tell people that are in that position, like, just be aware of that. Like, don't, like, see if sometimes it's hard to find out what the people underneath the person you're about to promote think of them, but it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't.
So what I heard was surround yourself with the right team. So where you can, get the people that you trust, bring in people that you
Yeah.
trust. There's this bit around being firm. Like there's a time and a
Yeah.
place to be firm.
100%. Yeah.
But on the flip side, and maybe it's not on the flip side, I actually think you can do both, is be firm, but with empathy.
Yeah, I think so. Like, just like I'm like I will call myself out in front of my team if I did something wrong. I think that, you know, they should be able to do the same thing, and everybody should be able to, like, and I don't even like, and they're allowed to tell me, like, hey, you were late on that. You were late on that approach, or you were late on that, we were late to the initial point before our parachute jump. Yeah. Okay. And you take it. But if you surround yourself with people that are competent, and then you empower them to do their job, like, don't micromanage them. If you trust these people, trust them to do their job, and set up these procedures where you guys can talk to each other about work in a empathetic, fair, and firm way. I agree with that.
Empathy, firm, fair. Love it.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that we've been able to have this conversation, and we've had a couple leading up to today, but even more grateful that you've been generous to share your message with others, and there's so much in here that I'm glad that other leaders get to hear. You've led in ways that most of us can only imagine, or look at a Top Gun movie or something like that to relate to. Yet,
yeah,
a lot of the stories and lessons that you shared apply to, I would say, any team or any leader.
Sure.
And particularly there's a lot of these moments where trust matters, and you've been able to share some lessons. So I want to thank you for staying up late, for being generous with your time, and that strong leadership often sounds like this calm and clear, but also making time for others to rise. And the other thing
100%. Yeah.
I add to that, what I hear from you is, like, everybody's view is important, and to create that environment of trust, or where people can speak up so that actually lives are saved and everybody gets home safe. That's really key in terms of leadership.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Ben. Really 100%. Love that.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Awesome, man. Well, maybe we'll have to do it again, but like, this is like a reminder for all listeners out there. This is how you build teams that swear by each other and not about each other. You take on a lot of these tips that Ben shared us today. If you're looking for other tips and insights, make sure you subscribe. Teams That Swear on your podcast, wherever that might be, whichever your favorite platform is. And if you're wondering about how is my team going, sometimes we have that feeling that there's something not quite right with my team. You can come to my website. You go to teamsthatswear.com, and you can do a free team dynamics assessment. And what it does is give you the opportunity to just do a self-check, an analysis of where you think things are going well, like what's going good, like Ben told us, and where things could be better. What can we learn from this? And I'll give you some real good tips on what to do next. So if you want to check that out, visit teamsthatswear.com. Otherwise, subscribe to Teams That Swear for the podcast, and you continue to get these tips. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks for joining me on Teams That Swear. If today's conversation sparked a thought, a question, or maybe even a new perspective, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're ready to transform how your team works together, reach out. I'd love to help. Because teams that swear by each other and not about each other don't happen by chance. They happen with intentional, deliberate action, and the first step starts with you.